I was 29 years old when I realized my family had already decided who I was allowed to be. Not because they said it out loud, but because of what they forgot. They forgot my birthday, not the day itself. They still sent a text. A short one. Hope you're well. No emoji, no call, no card. They forgot the dinner we had planned for weeks. The dinner they insisted we hold at my parents' house in Northport, New York, because my mother liked control disguised as hospitality. I stood in the driveway that evening with a grocery bag cutting into my palm, staring at the dark windows of the house I grew up in. No cars, no lights, no voices, just silence. My phone buzzed. My brother's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," Mark said when I answered, cheerful rushed. "We moved dinner. Last minute thing. Big opportunity came up." I already knew what that meant. His opportunity. "What about tonight?" I asked. "Oh," he said, as if just remembering I existed. "Mom thought you'd understand. We'll celebrate another time." Another time never came. I drove home with the groceries still in the passenger seat and ate alone in my apartment, the food cold, the silence loud enough to feel personal. That was the night I stopped believing my family was careless. They were intentional. And the proof came 3 weeks later at Thanksgiving dinner. The house was full that day, loud, warm, smelling like butter and roasted turkey and something sharper beneath it, resentment wrapped in tradition. My name is Claire Holloway. I was the daughter who paid her own way through college, the sister who never asked for help, the one who moved back home after my grandmother passed, not because I needed to, but because my parents said they did. My grandmother left me something. Not money, not a house. She left me shares in a small manufacturing company my grandfather helped start decades ago. Family business, my father called it. What he didn't say was that those shares were in my name alone. At the long dining table, my mother raised her glass. "To family," she said, "and to the future." Everyone smiled. My brother squeezed his wife's hand. My father nodded proud. My aunt dabbed her eyes. Then my father cleared his throat. "Before we eat," he said, "there's something we should discuss. Something important." My stomach tightened. He turned toward Mark. "As of today, we've finalized the transition plan. Mark will officially take over full operational control of the company." Applause broke out around the table. My hands stayed in my lap. No one looked at me. Not once. I waited, counted breaths, told myself this was fine, that ownership and control were different things, until my mother added casually like an afterthought, "Of course Claire has agreed to sign over her remaining interest. It keeps things simple." The room tilted. I felt the blood rush from my face. "I didn't agree to that," I said. The words sounded too loud, inappropriate, disruptive. Everyone froze. My father frowned. "Don't do this now. Do what I asked. Correct you." My brother laughed soft but sharp. "Come on, Claire. You don't even work there. You're not involved." "I own part of it," I said. My mother smiled the way she did when she wanted to appear calm while sharpening a blade. "Sweetheart," she said, "your grandmother would have wanted unity. Don't be selfish." Selfish. For keeping what was left to me. That was when I realized something fundamental. This wasn't about business. It was about erasing me quietly, cleanly, with consensus. And everyone at that table was in on it. I didn't know it yet, but that night would cost my family everything they thought was untouchable. Because they weren't just asking me to give up shares. They were asking me to give up my place. And I was done shrinking to make their lives easier. I didn't argue at the table. That surprised them. They expected tears-raised voices, maybe me storming off like I used to when I was younger, and still believed being heard mattered more than being strategic. Instead, I smiled. Not warmly, not politely. I smiled the way you do when you finally understand the rules of a game you were never meant to win fairly. "That's a big decision," I said, folding my napkin with care. "I'd like to see the paperwork." My father exhaled sharply, annoyed. "Claire, this is family. We don't need to involve lawyers." My brother Mark leaned back in his chair, confident, relaxed. "Yeah, don't make this complicated." Complicated. That word again. The one they used whenever I asked for clarity, fairness, or time to think. "I'm not making it complicated," I said evenly. "I'm making it clear." My mother's smile tightened. "We already spoke to an attorney. Everything's standard." "Great," I replied. "Then it should be easy for me to review." Silence settled over the table, thick and uncomfortable. My aunt coughed. Someone clinked a glass. Mark's wife avoided my eyes. My father finally nodded. "Fine, we'll send it to you." They didn't. Not that night, not the next day, not the week after. Instead, what I received was pressure. Subtle at first. A call from my mother, voice soft, wounded. "Your father hasn't been sleeping. This stress isn't good for his heart." A text from Mark. "Don't let money ruin the family." An email forwarded from a family accountant I barely remembered meeting, explaining how inefficient divided ownership could be. No documents, no specifics. Just urgency and guilt, wrapped together so tightly, it was hard to tell where one ended and the other began. That's when I knew they weren't confident. They were rushing. I made an appointment with a lawyer 2 days later. Her name was Rachel Monroe, early 40s, sharp eyes, calm voice, the kind of woman who didn't interrupt but didn't miss anything either. She listened as I explained everything. My grandmother, the company Thanksgiving dinner, the sudden expectation that I would sign away what was legally mine. When I finished, she didn't speak right away. She pulled out a legal pad and wrote one word at the top. Why? Why now, she asked. I don't know, I said. The company's been stable for years. Rachel nodded slowly. That's rarely when people push this hard. Something changed. She requested copies of the company's recent financials. I told her I didn't have access. Her eyebrow lifted. You're a shareholder. Apparently only in name, I said. Rachel leaned back. Claire, I want you to hear me very clearly. No one can force you to sign away your shares, not your parents, not your brother, not family expectations. I know, I said. That's why I'm here. Good, she replied. Because what you're describing isn't just pressure, it's coordinated. That word again. Coordinated. The same feeling I had at my birthday. At Thanksgiving. At every moment when the room subtly turned against me without a single raised voice. Rachel continued. I'm going to send a formal request for documents. If they're operating above board, they'll comply. And if they don't, then we learn something important. They didn't comply. Instead, my father showed up at my apartment unannounced 3 days later. He stood in my doorway coat, still on eyes, scanning my living room like he was taking inventory. You hired a lawyer, he said. It wasn't a question. I consulted when I corrected. His jaw tightened. After everything we've done for you. I gestured for him to sit. He didn't. Dad, I said quietly. Why are you in such a hurry? He looked away. That was my answer. Is the company in trouble? I asked. No, he said too quickly. Is Mark? Silence. My chest tightened. What's going on? He finally looked at me then, and in his eyes I saw something I hadn't expected. Fear. Sign the papers, Claire, he said. Please, this isn't about you. That was the moment something inside me hardened. Then it shouldn't cost me everything, I replied. He left without another word. That night I received the documents. Not from my parents. From Rachel. She'd obtained partial records through a regulatory filing my family didn't realize I could access. We sat together in her office as she walked me through them. The numbers didn't add up. There were loans I'd never heard of, short-term obligations tied to personal guarantees, risky expansions approved without full board consent, and one line item that made my breath catch, a pending acquisition. A large one. Rachel tapped the page. If this goes through control shifts, whoever holds majority shares after the deal finalizes holds everything. And when does it finalize, I asked. She checked the date. 2 weeks. That's why they were rushing. They didn't want my consent. They wanted my silence. And if I don't sign, I asked. Rachel met my eyes. Then they can't complete it, not legally. I leaned back, heart pounding. My family wasn't trying to protect unity. They were trying to secure power. And I was in the way. When I got home, my phone buzzed. A message from Mark. We need to talk, tonight. I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. Okay. But I already knew something he didn't. This conversation wasn't going to go the way he expected. Mark didn't come alone. I knew that the moment I opened the door and saw his car parked crookedly behind another one I didn't recognize. A rental. He stepped inside my apartment like he still owned the place, like the years I spent building a life separate from my family were just a phase he tolerated. Nice place, he said, glancing around. Still small. I closed the door slowly. What do you want, Mark? He turned, surprised by my tone. Straight to business now, you really are changing. I don't have time for performances, I said. Say what you came to say. He exhaled and finally dropped the smile. You're holding things up. There it is, I replied. At least you're honest. He paced once, then stopped in front of me. Claire, the deal is already lined up. Investors are waiting. If this falls apart, people get hurt. People like you, I asked. His jaw tightened. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. I folded my arms, then explain it to me. He hesitated. Just for a second. Long enough. Rachel's voice echoed in my mind. Why now? Did you take out loans against the company, I asked. His eyes flicked away. There it is, I said softly. How much? That's not your concern. It became my concern the moment you tried to erase me, I said. How much, Mark? He ran a hand through his hair. Enough. Enough to sink you if the acquisition doesn't go through. Silence. The room felt smaller, tighter. You leveraged company assets without full consent, I said. Did Mom and Dad know? He looked at me then, and for the first time I saw something raw in his expression. They encouraged it, he said. They said it was the only way to grow. And when it didn't work, I pressed. They said you'd understand, he snapped, that you wouldn't stand in the way. The betrayal landed slow and deep, not because he'd lied, but because they all assumed I would sacrifice myself quietly to clean up his mess. I'm not signing, I said. Mark's face hardened. You don't have a choice. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. That's funny. My lawyer disagrees. His eyes widened. You really think a lawyer can save you from this? I think the law might, I said, especially when personal loans are hidden under corporate filings. He stepped closer, voice low. You don't want to do this. Dad's health can't take it. Mom will never forgive you. There it was. The final weapon. Guilt sharpened into a blade. I'm not responsible for your choices, I said quietly, and I'm not your shield. His phone buzzed. He checked it, then looked at me with something between anger and desperation. We're running out of time, he said. So am I replied. He stared at me for a long moment, then shook his head. You think this ends well for you? I think it ends honestly, I said, for the first time. He left without another word. The rental car followed him out of the parking lot. I stood alone in my apartment, heart racing, hands cold. I knew something then with absolute certainty. They were going to escalate, and they did. The next morning, my mother called before sunrise. Her voice was trembling, breathless. Your grandmother's will, she said. There's something you don't know. I sat up in bed. What about it? There were amendments, she said. Late ones. She changed her mind. My stomach dropped. That's not true, I said. I was with her every week. Claire, my mother whispered, you need to come over. Now. I dressed in silence and drove through streets still half asleep, my mind racing. When I arrived, my father was seated at the kitchen table, pale hands wrapped around a mug he wasn't drinking from. My mother slid a folder toward me. Inside were copies of documents I had never seen before. Amendments dated months before my grandmother died. Reducing my share. Increasing marks. My name still there, but diminished. I stared at the signatures. Something felt wrong. The slant, the pressure, the way the letters leaned. My grandmother's handwriting had been shaky near the end. This wasn't. Where did these come from, I asked. My mother avoided my eyes. From the attorney who handled the estate. Which one, I asked. She named a firm I didn't recognize. I took the folder and stood. You forged this, I said quietly. My father slammed his hand on the table. Enough! No, I said, this is enough. I walked out with the documents in my hand and drove straight to Rachel's office. She studied the pages carefully, then looked up at me. These aren't originals, she said, and I don't think they're legitimate. My chest tightened. Can you prove it? She nodded slowly, with time, and with the right expert. How much time? She checked her calendar. Less than you have, she said. The acquisition was moving faster than expected. They were trying to rewrite history before I could stop them. And for the first time since this began, fear crept in. Not fear of losing money, fear of losing the truth, but fear I was learning could be sharpened. And I was done letting them use it against me. Rachel didn't sugarcoat it. If those amendments stand, she said, tapping the folder with one finger, your leverage weakens. Not disappears, but weakens. So we prove they're fake, I said. Yes, she replied. But not just that, we prove intent. She explained it slowly, deliberately, like she was teaching me how to see the board instead of the pieces. Forgery alone could be argued away as confusion, clerical error, misunderstanding. Families hid behind those words all the time. But a pattern turned mistakes into manipulation. Who handled your grandmother's estate originally? Rachel asked. Her longtime attorney, I said. Thomas Klein. He worked with her for over 20 years. Rachel nodded. And this new firm? I've never heard of them, I said. Neither had my grandmother, as far as I know. Rachel stood. Then we start there. Thomas Klein's office sat above a bakery in a quiet part of town. He was retired now, his name still on the door in fading gold letters. When he opened the door and saw me, his face softened with recognition. Claire, he said gently, I was sorry to hear about your grandmother. I swallowed. Mr. Klein, did she ever amend her will near the end? His brow furrowed. No. She reviewed it once more, but she didn't change beneficiaries. I handed him the copies. He adjusted his glasses, studied them carefully, then shook his head. These signatures aren't hers, he said. Too firm, too confident. She had arthritis. Her hand trembled. My chest tightened. Could someone else have filed these? He sighed. They could have tried, but not through me. Rachel leaned forward. Do you recognize the firm listed here? He scanned the name, then stiffened. I do, he said. They specialize in corporate estate restructuring. Aggressive, expensive. Would my grandmother have hired them, I asked. He looked at me steadily. No. The word landed heavy. Rachel asked, have you seen similar amendments before? He hesitated. Then he nodded. Once, he said. A few years back. Another family-owned company. The daughter was sidelined. My pulse quickened. What happened? They settled quietly, he said. The daughter walked away. Another woman. Another silence. Rachel's eyes met mine. Pattern. Before we left, Mr. Klein printed an affidavit stating he had no record of the amendments and that the signatures did not match his client's condition at the time. It wasn't enough to win, but it was enough to stop them from pretending this was harmless. On the drive back, my phone rang. My mother. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail instead. Her voice was thin, controlled, edged with something brittle. "Claire, your father collapsed. He's in the hospital." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. This was the part of the story everyone expected. The part where I folded. At the hospital, my parents sat together in the waiting area. My father looked exhausted but stable. My mother stood the moment she saw me. "This is because of you," she said quietly. "All this stress." I looked at her, really looked at her, and understood something painful and freeing. She didn't want me there as a daughter. She wanted me there as a solution. "I'm not the cause," I said calmly. "I'm the consequence." Her eyes flashed. "If you destroy this family—" "I'm not destroying it," I said. "I'm revealing it." Mark arrived an hour later. He didn't look at me. Not once. When Rachel called with an update that evening, her voice was sharp with urgency. "The acquisition documents were rushed through," she said. "Someone backdated approvals." My heart pounded. "Can you prove it?" "Yes," she said. "But Claire, there's more." She paused. "This firm handling the amendments, they've represented your family before. Not for you. For something else." "For what?" I asked. "For another inheritance dispute," she said. "Different state. Different woman." I closed my eyes. "How many?" I whispered. "At least 3, Rachel replied. "Possibly more." That night, lying awake, I realized the truth wasn't just about my family. It was about a system they trusted, a method, and I was standing in its way. But now I wasn't standing alone. The first public strike came disguised as concern. I woke up to 3 missed calls and a voicemail from my aunt, her voice syrupy and loud enough to feel performative even through the phone. "Sweetheart," she said, "people are worried about you. You seem overwhelmed. Maybe it's time to step back and let the family handle things." By noon, I understood what she meant by people. A former colleague texted me asking if I was okay. Another asked if I was taking some time off. A third sent a screenshot from a neighborhood Facebook group where my mother had posted a vague but loaded message. "Hard to watch a loved one spiral when money gets involved. Please keep Claire in your prayers." Spiral. That was the word they chose. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee untouched, scrolling through messages that all carried the same implication: that I was unstable, emotional, overreacting. Rachel called an hour later. "They're laying groundwork," she said. "Character assassination. It's a classic move." "So people won't believe me," I said. "So judges hesitate," she replied. "So lawyers doubt. So you feel isolated." I closed my eyes. "It's working." "It won't," Rachel said firmly. "Not if we stay ahead of it." She asked me to come into her office immediately. When I arrived, she had another woman sitting with her. Late 30s, calm posture eyes that didn't miss details. "This is Elaine Porter," Rachel said. "She reached out this morning." Elaine looked at me and offered a small, understanding smile. "I didn't think I'd ever say this out loud," she said, "but when I heard your name, I knew I had to." My pulse quickened. "You know my family." "Not directly," she said, "but I know the firm handling your grandmother's amendments." She took a breath. "They represented my ex-husband's family." My chest tightened. "We were married for 5 years," Elaine continued. "They convinced me to step back from business matters, told me it would reduce stress. By the time I realized what was happening, my shares were gone." "How?" I asked. She swallowed. "Amended documents. Emergency approvals. Things I supposedly agreed to." Rachel leaned forward. "Did you contest it?" Elaine nodded. "I tried, but they painted me as erratic, emotional, difficult." The words hit like a mirror. "And the family?" I asked. "They stood together," she said quietly. "Against me." Silence settled over the room. Rachel finally spoke. "Elaine, would you be willing to submit a statement?" Elaine hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, because I don't want it happening again." Something shifted inside me. I wasn't alone. That afternoon, my parents escalated. They filed an emergency petition requesting temporary control over my shares, citing concern for my mental well-being and alleging that I was being influenced by outside parties. Rachel read the filing twice, jaw tight. "They're asking the court to sideline you," she said. "Temporarily." "For how long?" I asked. She looked up. "Long enough to finalize the acquisition." My hands shook. "Can they do that?" "They can try," she said. "And Claire, they timed it well." The hearing was set for the following Monday, 3 days away. That night my brother called. His voice was low, tired, almost reasonable. "This is getting out of hand." "You started this," I said. "We can still fix it," he insisted. "Sign the papers. We'll make sure you're taken care of." "Taken care of?" "Like a liability." "I won't disappear quietly," I said. There was a pause. Then his tone changed. "If you push this," he said, "you're going to lose everything." I hung up without replying. When I lay down to sleep, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. One message. "You don't know who you're messing with." I stared at the screen, heart pounding, then forwarded it to Rachel. Her reply came seconds later. "Good. Now we know they're scared." I turned off the light, staring into the dark, realizing the truth. This wasn't just about stopping them anymore. It was about exposing them. And once you step into that kind of light, there's no going back. The courthouse smelled like disinfectant and old paper, the kind of place where decisions were made quietly and then lived with loudly. I sat beside Rachel on a hard wooden bench, my hands folded in my lap to keep them from shaking. Across the aisle, my parents sat shoulder to shoulder. Mark leaned against the wall behind them, arms crossed, jaw clenched. He didn't look at me. They looked unified. I looked alone. That was the picture they wanted the judge to see. When the clerk called our case, my heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. We rose, stepped forward, and took our places. The judge was a woman in her late 50s, silver hair pulled back tightly, eyes sharp and assessing. She looked first at me, then at my parents, then down at the stack of documents in front of her. "Temporary control of shares based on mental incapacity," she said slowly. "That's a serious allegation." My mother nodded solemnly. "We're just concerned about our daughter." Concern. That word again. Rachel stood. "Your Honor, this petition is not about concern. It's about control, and it's being used as leverage ahead of a pending acquisition." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" Rachel handed over a folder. "We have evidence of financial pressure, forged documents, and a coordinated attempt to sideline my client." Mark's attorney stood quickly. "Objection. Speculation." The judge held up a hand. "I'll decide what's speculative." She flipped through the pages, her expression unreadable. Then she looked directly at me. "Ms. Holloway, do you believe you are mentally unfit to manage your affairs?" "No," I said. My voice was steady. "I believe my family is trying to remove me because I won't give them what they want." My father scoffed softly. The judge noticed. "Mr. Holloway, she said I'd advise you to remember where you are." Rachel spoke again. "Your Honor, we have a witness." There was a murmur in the courtroom as Elaine Porter stepped forward. She raised her right hand, swore the oath, and took the stand. Elaine's voice trembled at first, but steadied as she spoke. She described her marriage, the pressure to step back, the documents she didn't understand until it was too late. "They told me it was temporary," she said, "that it was for my own good." The judge leaned forward. "And what happened?" "My shares were transferred," Elaine replied, "and when I objected, I was labeled unstable." My mother's face drained of color. Rachel submitted Elaine's sworn statement and supporting documents. The judge read them carefully, slowly. Then she asked Ms. Porter, "Were the same legal representatives involved in your case as in this one?" "Yes," Elaine said, "the same firm." Silence filled the room. The judge set the papers down and looked at my parents. "This court does not take kindly to patterns," she said. Mark's attorney shifted. "Your Honor, with respect, this is an entirely separate matter." "Is it?" the judge replied coolly. "Because it looks remarkably similar." She turned back to Rachel. "Ms. Monroe, what relief are you requesting?" "Denial of the petition," Rachel said, "and a temporary injunction preventing any transfer of shares until the underlying issues are resolved." The judge nodded once. Then she looked at me again. "Ms. Holloway, do you understand the implications of this decision?" "Yes," I said. "Whatever happens, it will change my family." Her gaze softened just slightly. Sometimes truth does that. She ruled quickly. Petition denied. Injunction granted. The room erupted into quiet chaos. My mother pressed a hand to her mouth. My father stared straight ahead, rigid. Mark turned away, fury radiating off him in waves. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like weeks. But as we walked out of the courtroom, Rachel's hand tightened on my arm. "This isn't over," she said quietly. She was right. Because in the hallway, my mother stopped me. Her voice was low-controlled, trembling with rage. "You've humiliated us." I met her eyes. "You tried to erase me." She leaned closer. "You think you've won. You haven't even seen how far this goes." That night, as I sat alone in my apartment, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. One message. "We know where this hurts most." I stared at the screen, cold spreading through my chest. Because I knew exactly what they meant. And I knew what was coming next. They went for my grandmother. Not her money. Her memory. 2 days after the hearing, my phone rang while I was in the grocery store staring blankly at shelves I didn't need. Rachel's name lit up the screen. "Claire," she said without preamble. "Did you authorize anyone to access your grandmother's medical records?" My stomach dropped. "No." "Are you sure?" "Yes." There was a pause on the line. "Then we have a problem." I left the cart where it was and walked outside, the cold air biting into my lungs. "They filed a motion this morning," Rachel continued. "They're claiming your grandmother lacked capacity in her final years, that the will itself may be invalid." I pressed my forehead against the brick wall of the store. "They're saying she wasn't of sound mind." "They're implying it," Rachel said, subtly, strategically. "Of course they were. If they couldn't erase me, they would erase her. My grandmother, who taught me how to balance a checkbook before I was 10, who corrected my spelling with patience and precision, who knew exactly what she owned and why she left it the way she did. She was sharp, I said, my voice breaking despite myself. Until the end. I believe you, Rachel replied, but belief isn't evidence. That afternoon, I drove to my parents' house for the first time since the hearing. I didn't announce myself. I walked straight in. My mother stood in the living room, phone in hand, already mid-conversation. She froze when she saw me. You're really doing this, I said quietly. She ended the call and set the phone down with exaggerated calm. Doing what? Dragging her name through court because you didn't get your way. My father appeared in the doorway, his face lined older than I remembered. She wasn't well at the end, he said. I stared at him. You know that's a lie. He looked away. Where did you get her medical records? I asked. My mother's lips thinned. We requested them. You had no right. She was our mother, she snapped. We had every right. No, I said. You had access, not truth. Her eyes flashed. You're not the only one who loved her. I never said I was, I replied. But I'm the only one honoring her choices. Silence stretched between us. Then my mother said something that finally broke whatever illusion I had left. She made a mistake, she said. And we're correcting it. I laughed once, hollow and sharp. You don't correct people after they're dead. You rewrite them. That night, Rachel called again. We have a counter, she said, but we need witnesses. Who? I asked. Anyone who interacted with your grandmother near the end, she replied. Doctors, friends, neighbors. I thought of one person immediately. Mrs. Adler, my grandmother's neighbor for nearly 20 years. The woman who shared tea with her every afternoon at 4 without fail. I drove there the next morning. Mrs. Adler opened the door slowly, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. Oh, Claire, she said, you look tired. I am, I admitted. I need your help. We sat at her small kitchen table, sunlight streaming through lace curtains. I explained everything carefully, watching her expression shift from confusion to anger. They're saying she wasn't in her right mind, Mrs. Adler scoffed. That woman beat me at crossword puzzles 3 days before she died. Tears stung my eyes. Would you be willing to say that in court? She didn't hesitate, of course. Rachel wasn't surprised. She was sharp, Mrs. Adler said into the phone later. Sharper than most people half her age. By the end of the week, we had statements from 2 nurses, her physical therapist, and her accountant. Every single one contradicted my parents' claim. The pattern was clear. So was the motive. They weren't defending my grandmother. They were weaponizing her. And then, just when I thought I had seen every angle, something else surfaced. Rachel called late that night, her voice tight. Claire, she said, we ran a deeper background check on the law firm. And I asked, they've represented your family before, repeatedly, not just for business. For what then? She exhaled. For estate challenges involving women who stood to inherit. My chest tightened. How many? At least 4, she said. And Claire, one of them died before the case resolved. The words hung in the air. Died. How I whispered. Rachel paused. Officially natural causes. I sat on my bed in the dark, phone pressed to my ear, heart pounding. This wasn't just greed. This was a system. And my family wasn't just participating. They were practiced. When I hung up, I stared at the ceiling for a long time, realizing something that chilled me to the bone. They weren't just trying to win. They were trying to outlast me, and I had to make sure they couldn't. The first thing Rachel said when I told her what I was thinking was no. Not gently, not cautiously. No, she repeated. Absolutely not. I sat across from her desk, hands wrapped around a paper cup of coffee I hadn't touched. They're not backing down. You said it yourself. They've done this before. That doesn't mean you put yourself in danger, she said. I already am in danger, I replied. Just not the kind they're used to. She studied me for a long moment. Say it. I want to expose the pattern, I said, publicly, before the next hearing. Rachel leaned back. Once you do that, there's no containment, no quiet resolution. I don't want quiet, I said. I want it to stop. Silence settled between us. Finally, she nodded once. Then we do it carefully. The strategy wasn't dramatic. No press conference, no interviews. Just documents. Truth has weight when you let it speak for itself. Rachel and I spent the next 4 days assembling a timeline. Not just mine, all of them. Elaine's case, the other inheritance disputes, the shared law firm, the similar tactics, the same language appearing in filings across different states, the same phrases repeated like fingerprints. Emotional instability, best interests, temporary control. Temporary had stretched into permanent every time. By the time we finished, the file was thick enough to feel dangerous. Rachel sent it quietly to the state oversight board that reviewed legal ethics, then to the financial crimes unit, then to a journalist she trusted who specialized in corporate abuse cases. We didn't announce it. We let it exist. 2 days later, the first call came. Not from my family, from the law firm. Their senior partner left a voicemail, his voice measured, careful. Ms. Holloway, we believe there has been a misunderstanding. We'd like to discuss a resolution. Resolution. I deleted the message. The second call came from my father. I don't recognize you anymore, he said. This isn't who you were raised to be. I closed my eyes. No, I said quietly. This is who I was taught not to become. That night the article went live. It didn't name me. Not yet. It laid out the pattern, the firms, the families, the outcomes. It asked questions. Who benefits when women are sidelined during estate transitions? Why are the same tactics repeated? Why are settlements sealed? By morning it was everywhere. By afternoon my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Friends, distant relatives, people I hadn't heard from in years. And then finally my mother. Her voice was shaking. What have you done? I told the truth, I said. You've embarrassed us, she said. People are calling. Good, I replied. They should. There was a pause. Then she said something that told me everything I needed to know. We can still fix this, she said, if you stop. I laughed softly. You still don't understand. Understand what? This was never about fixing, I said. It was about ending. She hung up. The next morning, Rachel called early. The oversight board opened a formal investigation, she said, into the firm, and potentially into associated parties. My heart pounded. Associated parties meaning families who repeatedly engaged them, she finished. The system was cracking. But cracks make noise. That afternoon, as I pulled into my parking space, I noticed a car idling across the street. Engine running, windows dark. It wasn't the first time. I sat in my car for a moment watching. The car didn't move. I got out anyway. As I reached my building door, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. This ends if you walk away. I forwarded the message to Rachel. Her reply came immediately. Do not engage. They're losing control. That night, lying awake, I understood something terrifying and clarifying at the same time. They weren't trying to scare me into silence anymore. They were trying to scare me into survival mode, and I refused to shrink again. The first crack appeared where I didn't expect it. Not in my parents, not in Mark, but in my aunt. She called me late one night. Her voice low, rushed like she was afraid someone might overhear her through the phone. Claire, she whispered, you need to be careful. I didn't respond right away. Careful of what? I asked finally. Of your mother, she said, and your brother. They're blaming each other now. That didn't surprise me. Pressure always reveals fault lines. What do you mean blaming? I asked. She exhaled. Your father's furious. He says Mark pushed too hard. Mark says your mother orchestrated everything. No one wants to be the one holding the knife. I pictured it clearly. The same unity they'd used to corner me now, turning inward sharp and desperate. There's more, she added. Mark is scared. That caught my attention. Scared of what? Of the loans, she said. Of the firm. Of what comes out if the investigation deepens. I closed my eyes. Why are you telling me this? There was a pause. Because she said quietly, I don't want to be next. The next morning, Rachel confirmed it. Someone from your family contacted my office, she said. They asked about immunity. My heart skipped. Who? She hesitated. Mark. I sat down slowly. He wants a deal, Rachel continued. He's offering information. Information was currency now. And Mark finally understood the price of silence. Rachel arranged the meeting for that afternoon. He arrived alone. No confidence, no swagger, just a man whose carefully built position was collapsing. He wouldn't look at me at first. I didn't think it would go this far, he said. That's what you told yourself, I replied, not what you believed. He swallowed. Mom handled the legal side. Dad signed what she put in front of him. I just followed. Followed, I echoed. Right off a cliff. His jaw tightened. You don't know everything. Then tell me. He rubbed his hands together. The firm approached us years ago, after Grandma got sick. They said family businesses lose value when ownership is split, that they could help consolidate control. And you believe them, I said. They showed us examples, he replied. Families who protected assets. I leaned forward, and the women. He flinched. They said it was always cleaner if one voice made decisions, he muttered. Cleaner. I felt something cold settle in my chest. What else? I asked. Mark hesitated, then said the words that finally shifted the ground beneath me. The will amendments, he said. Mom didn't forge them herself. My breath caught. Who did? The firm, he said. They kept signature samples, medical records, timing windows. How I demanded. They monitored Grandma's appointments, he said. Knew when she was tired, when she wouldn't notice small changes. I felt sick. They were preparing long before she died, he continued. The amendments were just one step. Rachel's voice was calm, precise, and the other women. Mark nodded, same process. I sat back stunned. This wasn't just manipulation. It was manufacturing consent. Rachel slid a document across the table. If you cooperate fully, we'll present it to the DA. Mark looked at it like it might burn him. And my family, he asked. Rachel didn't flinch. The truth doesn't protect bloodlines. He signed. When he left, I didn't feel relief. I felt gravity. Because if Mark was talking, it meant the machine was truly breaking, and machines don't go quietly. That night, my mother showed up at my door, unannounced, uninvited. Her hair was unbrushed, her coat half-buttoned. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Please," she said, "we need to talk." I let her in. She stood in the middle of my living room, eyes darting like she expected the walls to testify against her. "He's turning on us," she said, "after everything we did for him." I crossed my arms. "You mean everything you did for control?" She flinched. "You don't understand how fragile this family is." "I understand exactly how fragile it is," I replied. "It just hid behind me." Tears filled her eyes. Real or strategic, I couldn't tell anymore. "If this goes to trial," she whispered, "we lose everything." I met her gaze steadily. "You already lost me." Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time in my life, she had nothing left to say. As she left, I realized something profound. I wasn't dismantling my family. I was exposing the structure that had already hollowed it out. And tomorrow, that structure would face daylight. For the first time. The deal collapsed at 9:12 in the morning. Rachel was the one who told me. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the tension beneath it. "Your mother refused the final term," she said. "She wanted guarantees." "Of what?" I asked. "Of silence," Rachel replied. I closed my eyes. Even now, with everything exposed, she believed control was still negotiable. By 10 o'clock, the district attorney had filed amended charges, not just against the law firm, against individual participants, including family members. The hearing was set for that afternoon. No more delays, no more backroom conversations. The courthouse was packed this time. Reporters, observers, people who had read the article and recognized pieces of their own stories in it. I sat beside Rachel, again spine straight, hands steady. Across the room, my family looked fractured. My father sat alone staring at the floor. Mark was flanked by his attorney, pale, hollow-eyed. And my mother sat rigid, chin lifted, eyes sharp with fury and something else. Fear. The judge entered and the room rose. She didn't waste time. "We are here to determine whether sufficient evidence exists to proceed to full trial," she said, "and whether interim protections remain in place." Rachel stood and presented the evidence methodically. The pattern of amendments, the testimony from Elaine and the other women, the affidavit from Thomas Klein, the digital trails, and finally Mark's signed statement. My mother's attorney objected repeatedly. The judge overruled him every time. Then the judge turned to my mother. "Mrs. Holloway," she said, "you are named repeatedly in these documents. Would you like to respond?" My mother stood. She smoothed her coat, lifted her chin higher, and spoke with practiced authority. "I did what any mother would do," she said. "I protected my family." The judge's voice was cool. "From what?" My mother hesitated. "From me," she almost said. Instead, she answered, "From collapse." Rachel stood again. "Your Honor, protection does not include forging documents, manipulating medical access, or removing consent." My mother's composure cracked. "You don't understand what it's like to hold a family together," she snapped. Rachel didn't raise her voice. "Neither did the women you erased." The room went silent. The judge leaned back, studying my mother carefully. "Mrs. Holloway," she said, "do you deny coordinating with the law firm to amend the will?" My mother's jaw tightened. "No," she said. The word echoed. "A confession. Not full, but enough." The judge nodded once. "That is sufficient." She ruled without drama. The injunction would stand. The case would proceed to full trial, and all assets would remain frozen pending outcome. As the gavel came down, my mother sank back into her seat. The woman who had controlled every narrative of my life had lost control of this one. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Rachel shielded me as we walked. "Are you okay?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm clear." That night my father called. His voice was tired, older than it had ever sounded. "I should have stopped her," he said. "Yes," I replied, "you should have." He didn't argue. Sometimes silence is the closest thing to accountability. As I hung up, I realized the truth. The trial wasn't the end. It was the reckoning, and it was coming for all of them. The waiting was harder than the fighting. Once the trial date was set, everything slowed down. Motions, filings, continuances requested and denied, days measured not by hours but by phone calls that didn't come. My life existed in a strange suspension. I still went to work, still paid bills, still answered emails, but underneath it all there was a constant hum. Anticipation, fear, and something steadier beneath both of them. Resolve. Rachel warned me the pressure would change shape. "They can't control the courtroom," she said, "so they'll try to control you." She was right. Anonymous letters arrived at my apartment, some pleading, some accusing. One warned me that families like mine didn't forgive betrayal. I threw them all away. The real blow came from someone I didn't expect. My father. He asked to meet. We sat in a quiet diner halfway between our homes, a neutral place, no memories baked into the walls. He looked thinner, smaller. "I never thought it would end like this," he said. "I know," I replied. He stared into his coffee. Your mother believes she did the right thing. I know that too. He looked up. Do you? I held his gaze. Belief doesn't excuse damage. He nodded slowly. If I testify, he said it will destroy what's left of my marriage. I didn't answer right away. What are you asking me? I said finally. Permission, he admitted. I felt something loosen in my chest. This isn't about permission, I said. It's about truth. He closed his eyes. At trial, he took the stand. He testified about documents he signed without reading, about meetings he attended but didn't question, about a family culture where obedience was praised and dissent punished. When he stepped down, my mother didn't look at him. The law firm's defense collapsed quickly. Too many patterns, too many identical phrases, too many women with the same story. When my turn came, I spoke plainly. I didn't dramatize. I didn't cry. I told the court what it felt like to realize your family sees you as expendable, what it does to a person to be reduced to an obstacle. When I finished, the courtroom was silent. The verdict came 2 days later. Fraud. Conspiracy. Civil liability. The firm was disbarred. Criminal proceedings followed. My mother was found liable in civil court, not imprisoned but stripped of influence, assets, frozen reputation, permanently damaged. Mark accepted a plea deal. My father filed for separation. The dynasty collapsed not with an explosion, but with a slow, irreversible fracture. After the ruling, Rachel hugged me once. Hard. You did this, she said. No, I replied. I survived it. I moved 3 months later. Not far, just far enough. A smaller place, more light, less history pressing in from the corners. The company restructured, properly this time. Independent oversight, transparent governance. I kept my shares. But more importantly, I kept my name. My mother hasn't called. I don't expect she will. Some silences aren't wounds, they're boundaries. Mark sent a letter once. Apologetic, careful, afraid. I didn't respond. Forgiveness isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it's just release. I still think about my grandmother often. I like to believe she would have recognized the woman I became. Not the quiet one, not the compliant one, the one who stood. If you're listening to this and something in your life feels coordinated against you, trust that instinct. Patterns don't lie. People do. And the moment you stop shrinking to protect others is the moment your life begins to belong to you. If this story resonated with you, if you've lived some version of it yourself, take a moment. Like the video. Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more stories like this. Because truth survives silence. And sometimes revenge isn't about punishment. It's about reclaiming your name.